Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypherbox and I'm doing quite a few catch-up videos at the moment. Last week I was on the graveyard shift working nights, so a lot of news that took place last week I didn't get the opportunity to kind of capture and make videos and podcasts about. So what I want to talk about in this video is Canelo Alvarez. Now obviously, as you already know, I'm not breaking any news here, you already know this of course. Canelo Alvarez was suspended by the Nevada State Athletics Commission. He was due to have a hearing on April 10th, which has now been pushed back to April 18th, which is like, what, 2 or 3 weeks before his fight with Triple G was scheduled. I have to admit, it's not looking good for Canelo Alvarez at the moment. The fight definitely looks like it's in some sort of jeopardy. Not only that, the MGM Grand, who own the T-Mobile Arena, have also started offering refunds for people who may have purchased tickets for the fight. Again, not a good sign that Canelo Alvarez is going to come out on the other side clean from this hearing that he's expected to have with the Nevada State Athletics Commission on April 18th. Now, I've done a lot on these videos already. I've talked about it in great detail, given my opinion on the whole situation, and I still stand, where I am. I'm still standing where I am in terms of Canelo Alvarez testing positive for clenbuterol, which he says was the result of him consuming contaminated meat. It showed trace elements which matched, obviously, contaminated meat. Someone who would have consumed contaminated meat, my whole point on this whole thing was, but I am still saying what I said back in my last 2 videos, which is I believe Canelo Alvarez should be suspended. Now, the reason I'm saying that is not because I'm not accusing Canelo Alvarez of taking clenbuterol or being a PED abuser. There's no hardcore evidence to suggest that or to prove that. There is enough, however, to suspect it, but we can't prove it. The issue we have here is we don't know if it was contaminated meat or whether the result of those trace elements that were found in his system were the result of him coming off a 3 or 4 month usage of clenbuterol. Victor Conte said it himself. I played you a video in one of my other videos of Victor Conte, an audio of what he said, where he said, it could be contaminated meat, but at the same time, there was a 3 or 4 month period between the first fight and the training period for the second fight, where Team Canelo were free to do whatever they wanted to do. So we can't say yes, he was using clenbuterol, for a 3 or 4 month cycle. However, we can't say no, he wasn't. Just like how we can say it is definitely contaminated meat. That's the reason for the positive test. We can't say it's not either, if that makes sense. So, in my opinion, I think he needs to be suspended. I saw an interview recently with Paulie Malignaggi actually, and I have to actually agree with Paulie what Paulie says. Now, if he is found guilty here and banned, I believe the minimum ban is a 1 year ban, which could get reduced down to 6 months. I personally think what they need to do with Canelo Alvarez is ban him for a 6 month period. Ban him for a 6 month period, yeah, and during that 6 months period, he must agree to rigorous drug testing. Yeah, so for that entire 6 month period, he has to agree to random drug testing. Yeah, this will help clear things up for him. Okay, if he goes that 6 months without any positive tests or any signs of foul play or anything like that, then great. He can go on, fight Triple G in the rematch at a later date. They'll have to postpone it. Obviously, this causes a lot of problems for the promoters and etc. and stuff like that. I know it does, but at the same time, it's about cleaning up the sport. Now, as I said, you can't say yes, he was taking it, or no, he wasn't taking it. And a lot of people are going to criticize for what I'm saying here, but you hear me out when I say this, okay? My whole take on this thing is that even if it was contaminated meat, okay, in my opinion, Canelo Alvarez and his team are still responsible. you know you live in a region of the world, okay, where you have this issue. Yeah, I talked about it before. There was loads of ways around this. Yeah, you know, he's got the money and the clout to help him avoid these sort of things. Okay. Not only that, you should take note. He should take note of where he's purchasing his meat from. I told you back in 2015, the Mexican authorities did a audit on 200 slaughterhouses in Mexico, and 58 of them tested positive for having clenbuterol in their meat. You know, if your government, the Mexican authority is conducting such audits, you know, that's a point of call. You could have turned to them and said, hey, can you help me out here? Where do I need to, where can I buy my meat so I don't test positive during drug tests, you know, because I know there's an issue here within our country. Okay, not only that, you know, end of the day, you've got to be a bit smart where you're buying the meat from. You know, keep a diary where you're buying your meat from. You know, who's your suppliers? Yeah, if you have to go as far as writing down what restaurants you're eating at, I know listen, a lot of people are going to say you're being ridiculous here, but you've got to do it. You know, you've got to protect yourself. And from my point of view, they've shown no responsibility for, you know, showing a lack of responsibility, should I say. And remember, by tracking where you're purchasing your meat from, by tracking where you're eating your meat from, it's a paper trail. If you test up positive, you could say, well, in the last couple of months, you know, if there's a trace element in the system of contaminated meat, he could turn around and say, well, here you go, these are all the restaurants I've eaten at, these are all the supermarkets I've purchased my meat at, you know, go investigate it. Go and find out where they get their meat from, and find out, you know, are these one of these dodgy slaughterhouses that are supplying one of these restaurants or one of these supermarkets that pump their meat full of clenbuterol. You know, WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency, you know, was that back in 2015 as well? I don't remember what I said in my last video, but during one of the para weightlifting games, and I think there was a swimming game as well, telling their athletes to do that they warned them of contaminated meat, and they said, make sure you keep a diary of wherever you're eating and purchasing your meat from, because if you test up positive, we're going to hold you accountable. But if you're going to claim that it's contaminated meat, at least have a diary so we can go back and actually go and kind of backtrack where the meat came from, who supplied it, was it contaminated, is the slaughterhouse that provides the meat one of those slaughterhouses that, you know, pump their meat full of clenbuterol. You know, so the same needs to apply to Canelo Alvarez, in my opinion. You know, that's what he should have done. We've seen this case with Francisco Vargas, who was it, Eric Morales as well in the last few years. And you know what? If they don't put a stop to it now and hold fighters responsible, either for thinking that they cheated or saying that you have not been responsible enough here and you've not looked after yourself in terms of being careful where you're purchasing your meat from, you've shown a lack of responsibility, should I say, and negligence, then every fighter that comes out of Mexico or a fighter that comes out of China even will turn around and say, well, it's contaminated meat. But for all we know, they might have been injecting clenbuterol in their body for the last 3 or 4 months, and those trace elements are the last bit of trace elements from that cycle of ped abuse, of PED abuse. So therefore, I think a clear message needs to be sent out to the boxing community, to the boxing fraternity, to all the fighters out there, and say, this isn't going to be accepted anymore. We're not just going to accept you saying it's contaminated meat. This is us clearly sending a message to you that you need to take responsibility about what you put into your body, yeah, and you need to take precaution and serious steps to avoid this from happening to you. And if it does happen to you, make sure you have a paper trail, a log of where you purchase your meat, where you eat your meat in terms of restaurants, etc. and stuff like that, so we can backtrack it. And that way you can prove to us as well at the same time that you're not a cheat, that it is actually down to contaminated meat. That's my opinion on the whole matter. I've said it time and time again. My narrative hasn't changed on this whole subject. In my opinion, I think Canelo Alvarez should be banned for a 6-month period. If he stays clean, you know, during that period, during random drug testing, during that 6-month period, cool, great. You know, if something comes up again, then take the necessary steps going forward. Simple as that, really. That's all I really got to say to all you guys on this subject in particular. As always guys, like, share and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.